What's up, everybody? As my PC makes noises, Windows 10 for the win. We're going to be getting into State of CS, the second episode here. It's the new Room on Fire talk show that we're trying to make happen around all of our lives, tournament travel, everything like that. But we're here this week. And it's a damn good thing, too, because it's been a total clusterfuck in CS for the past week, and we need to talk about it. So, joining me tonight, it's going to be On Fire Moses, Jason O'Toole, and our second guest actually is cool. It's going to be Anna Baumann, the Esports Law EU. So,
hi guys, what's up?
How's it going, everybody? You guys good?
Yeah, all well and good. It's it's early here. It's like 5 a.m. in esports time.
I know, right? I'm very glad that you were able to wake up. I've had a bit of a struggle today waking up myself. It's always that like trap when you get back from an event and you're just like, I'm going to be productive, I'm going to be up, it's going to be sick, wake up at 9, wake up at 8, yeah, and then you wake up and it's like, oh, it's 11 o'clock. And
you really want me to comment on this? I mean, my week started on Monday. No idea about you, Of course, there was an after party, but, well, so, yeah.
No, I missed my flight in London. But it was actually a very productive day after all, so I'm pretty happy with how it went. But yeah, I did miss my flight in London. It was fun. It's the first time that's happened to me as well. So, because I always have a system with my stuff so that I never lose it, right? So I'm always on top of everything. And I think it was when we moved from Leicester to London for the second phase of Pro League, I put my passport into a pocket for some reason of my bag that I never checked, that I never used for anything, right? And so when I get to the airport at Heathrow, right, on the way home, I'm patting my pocket where I usually keep my passport, and I'm like, wait, passport isn't there. Patting all the pockets, tear my jacket off, go through everything there, go through my like little bag. Maybe I put it in there because I'd repacked my bag that morning, so I knew it wasn't in my bag. So I'm flipping my fucking shit at this point, just going like, I need to somehow get on this plane. And so call the hotel, get the room service, can you guys go and check my room, please? Maybe I forgot it there because I had this image in my head of the passport being on the table, maybe under some papers or something. Maybe I overlooked it. And it turns out I'm halfway back into town and the passport was in this fucking pocket in the bag. So imagine my relief when I'm in the fucking taxi and I just shout at the top of my lungs, I'm a fucking retard. And the taxi guy swerves a little bit because I'm just like really quiet, just like rummaging through, and all of a sudden I'm just shouting, right? So yeah, it was a fun day. There's a story. Basically, I end up booking a flight for that night, but it means that I got to spend an afternoon in London that I wouldn't have otherwise. So good times.
That's brilliant. All because you didn't want to go on the early shuttle.
All because I didn't want to go on the early shuttle, which was at 7:30 a.m. for a flight that was at 2, and I timed it out perfectly, man. I left the hotel. It was right on the money. I get there 2 hours. I've got 2 hours to make it through security, make my flight. It was sick. And then yeah, everything had to hit the fan.
Wonderful. That's sick. That's a really good story. Yeah, I was that shuttle was very early. I think I was like 3 hours early for my flight, so I was pretty miserable. I was on like 20 minutes of sleep. Took a nice nap before heading out.
Yeah. Was on 2 hours of sleep. I think I must have got 2 hours of sleep because they still woke me up for that shuttle, because I was supposed to be on the shuttle with you, right? Yeah. And at 7:40, the TV goes off in my room as if it's a wake-up call. I'm just like, the fuck is going on? And because I rescheduled my wake-up call for 9 a.m., right, so that I could wake up, leave by 10, plenty of time to make the flight. And it's just hotels, man. They just never actually do what they're supposed to do. It's all good, man. Because then obviously there was no wake up call at 9, so I didn't want to fall asleep after I woke up because then I was worried about I'd sleep through another alarm or something like that, right? So just a good day, man. It's a good day.
That sounds.
Anna is not moving. In case you're wondering, Anna is not moving because I don't even know what Anna looks like right now. Hold on, I'll start the stream. But the camera doesn't work.
Thank you very much. I didn't leave any impression, did I? No, there is no picture of me because Phil, who produces the show, is not happy with the quality my laptop camera produces. So sorry for that, guys. For the future, I'll take care of it. But I'm going to comply with Phil's very strict requirements for the quality.
No, it's good. It's good. Look, Relic has figured it out. Relic 3012, he's figured it out in the chat. He's right on the money. You're actually a mime. So there we go. It's all become clear. It's all become clear in my head now. It all makes sense. When I try and talk to you,
5 minutes into the show and I'm already questioning, whether it was a mistake to agree. Come on, but okay, let's go for it.
Now I understand, when I'm talking to you and you're just doing this to me the whole time. Now I get it. It all makes sense. All right. All right, so what do we want to talk about then? What do we want to start off with? Because there's been a few things that's been happening. Well, obviously, Pro League has wrapped up, right? So do we want to just start off with Pro League and then we can start getting into the juicy bits that has been talked to death basically over the past several days?
I'd say it's up to Anna if she wants to start out with WESA or WESA. Should we come up? Let's start there. Let's figure out how we're gonna. Is it WESA or WESA?
If we want to be Germans about it, it's WESA, right?
Oh, you want to be like super German about it? Then it's WESA,
WESA.
That sounds so frightening.
It sounds just a little scary.
Let's go with WESA.
Yeah, I think WESA is the easiest. So
you don't say it angry enough, Anna. Like if it's German, it's just like WESA or something. Like that's what I imagine it's supposed to sound like. But okay then.
You think I should have a drink at 4:30 in the afternoon and then do a nice impression on WESA? Okay. Fantastic.
I feel like we should. I feel like this show with how it's going already. We might need to start. We might need to start soon. All right. So I guess let's just go ahead and get right into WESA then, because that's what everybody wants to talk about. That's what everybody is so focused on right now. I've read multiple articles on the topic at this point. Everybody seems to be fairly negative about it, apart from Kevin Knock. Cat's Pajamas was his old name. I don't know why he went away from it. Cat's Pajamas was pretty elite. He seems to be like the only one that I've been able to get my hands on that is from the scene that's positive about this whole thing. So is Cat's just crazy, or do we share that? Do we share that example, or do we share that opinion? Where are we? I don't know.
I mean, what are the main arguments in the room? Why are people so negative about it? I mean, I'm not negative about it myself. So well,
neither am I. So I mean, yeah, I feel like
what are the main points against it basically now? So people are afraid of any kind of exclusivity. Mm-hmm. I think that is one of the main points. I think looking at it, we all know Thorin did a very long video on it and made the point that it's very vague what we know. Clearly, at this point, they've said it several times. It's not exclusive for now. For now is an expression we've also seen, being used by Hastro in his blog post.
Which I think is the best thing that's come out so far on the whole thing.
Oh, it was absolutely enlightening
blog post.
About the purpose. And it's also pointing to a lot of, let's say, positive developments, I think. So, yeah, but I mean, what are other thoughts, negative thoughts about it? I'm wondering.
I think one of the biggest negatives is how it's supposed to be a body that tries to like regulate rules and sanction other events, but it doesn't have any other event organizers on it that have any input on the kind of rules and things that need to be standardized throughout tournaments and throughout leagues. That's one of the big signs to me, was just that it's made up of all ESL. There's no one from MLG, and I understand that coming to an agreement between competitors and business is probably very, very difficult, but it is a little bit frightening that they can wield this power if they have all these teams and say, this tournament organizer that we're not affiliated with has to adhere to these standards. Maybe down the road it's like standards that they know other leagues and opposing organizers can't actually meet. I just think there's a lot of influence on ESL being like this main organizer in this group.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. When you look at it, so I mean, clearly everybody has spoken a lot about it. One of my first stances on it was that looking at WESA, it's a body coming up with best practices and some governance in esports, but it is also basically a tool used by ESL, in my opinion, to vertically integrate in CSGO. What does that mean? So they basically integrate vertically, looking at the tournament organizer, other industry participants such as teams and the players. And I think what you pointed out, Jason, is very interesting. That's exactly what happens. So if somebody in the market gains a dominant position and imposes certain rules on other industry participants, it can be hard to meet, those standards. And but further down the line, I come from competition law. There's a thing called abuse of market power. Maybe we're going to see something like that in the future.
What I wonder now is why this. It seems to me like if it's true what Richard was saying, right? Because Richard did a show on it as well. He had his WESA special, and I gave that a listen yesterday. And he brought up a point that happened a few months ago, basically, where apparently he walked into a hotel bar and saw ESL, Faceit, DreamHack, PGL, all sitting around a table, including Star Series, apparently, right? All these guys sitting around a table right now. So what actually, like, this is where that whole transparency thing comes around, I guess. I guess we don't necessarily deserve an answer, but it would be handy to know, like, okay, at what point did the conversation break down with all those orgs? Because if they were actually sitting around a table with all of those orgs, how is it that none of those orgs made it into WESA along with ESL? Or was that ESL's intent all along? That's a point that stands out for me, right?
Yeah, I think it's weird because there's been plenty about criticizing WESA with the ESL involvement, but what worries me more, because I think everyone kind of talks about this as a foundation, which I think is a really good way to look at it. Like, there's going to be bumps in the road as they develop where this kind of leads to and what it eventually will do. And I mean, looking at it on that front, what worries me more than even ESL's involvement is the players, because they, like, all the players I talked to at Pro League that are involved, their teams, their organizations are one of the original 8. Everyone I've talked to since then, none of the players have any idea, like, what the power structure is, what they're doing, what rights they have, what rights they don't have, how they wield that power. Like, they have no clue what they're doing. And if you want to look at this as a foundation, then yeah, what happens in this first year is going to be huge. It's going to start setting precedents for how WESA operates in the future, how WESA, like the rulings they're going to make. This is going to be the foundation that's laid for the decisions made in that future. And if the players don't understand initially the power they have, they're going to give a lot of that away just through these rulings that are going to come out from WESA. So if the players aren't going to be involved in this, if they haven't looked at the contracts.
Do you expect there to be rulings issued by WESA, let's say, against players? For example, is WESA the association that's governing, decisions on doping, for example, if somebody gets tested positive somewhere, or even issuing bans on top of that? Is that because at the moment, well, at least I haven't seen any document explaining, what are the powers exactly, how does it work, right?
I think what we can take away from this whole experience over this past week is that it feels very much like ESL jumped the gun. And I don't know if this was due to that poster getting leaked, and they felt like they had to rush everything at that point, that they had to get out there in the public because all of a sudden there's a poster with WESA on there and all that sort of stuff, or what. But it feels like they came to the table expecting to get slammed with questions, because they must have expected to get slammed with questions considering the scope of the project that they're trying to put into play. But it feels like they came to the table with half the answers or no answers at all. That's how it feels to me right now. It's just like, not only do the players not seem to have any idea of what's going on with this thing, but it doesn't really feel like ESL are prepared to talk about anything either. It's just like, oh, what are your articles of incorporation? What are the rules that this board, have to follow, have to comply to, right? To make these rulings, to make these decisions. We get none of that, or we have had none of that. When you would think that if you're going to actually, announce something like this, you would have this thought through and ready to go in like a handy little PDF or something for anybody interested in the process. Or is that just too much? Or am I being naive? And is that just too much information to give away?
I don't think so. I think, for a launch, it would have been better to have more than only, let's say, two things. They've published basically 2 things on their Twitter account explaining the association structure. I guess that's also from the press conference. And something about player influence. Again, it's pretty vague. On the other hand, I think it already gives a good idea how it's going to work. So from a legal standpoint, I think, I see on 2 points when you look at this association structure. So they have a members meeting and there will be an external auditor to that. And there's going to be an executive committee that's going to take decisions. And they have an external auditor for that as well. I think that is already a good sign in my mind, because it seems like they already apply lessons learned from what's going on with FIFA, for example, where basically Transparency International, another well-known established organization, came in and told FIFA, look guys, you need to have more transparency, you have to have independent auditors, and I think that needs to happen with WESA as well. So, and they seem to have thought about that, which is a good sign in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. It's true. And it also seems like what came out at the press conference was that the player representative, whoever that ends up being, in my opinion, the players actually have to band together now and pay somebody, a professional, to look out for their interests. It can't be a player who's on that board, but the player will actually have a seat at the board. It's not like he's going to have, be
not the executive board.
He won't have it at the executive.
Not the executive board.
No, when you look
at the arbitration council or something like that.
He's not going to be on the executive board. That's interesting.
No,
what I thought was that he was going to be on the executive board.
No, there are 5 seats on the executive board, in my understanding, 2 ESL, 2 team CEOs. Then you have, well, at the moment, this intermediate commissioner, Dr. Fringuelli, and that's it. And you have a players' council. So this means, so what I would expect is that players can give their input to certain structures that might be not even developed at this point, and that this will be developed at a later stage, and that they can give their input what they would like to see.
That's interesting, because that to me is a big knock to this, actually, because when I was thinking, oh well, if the players actually find a union head or something like that to sit on the executive board and actually have a vote and actually have some influence on it, that sounds a whole lot more interesting to me than just a council that is separate from the actual decision making.
Yeah, the
who will be cut out of a lot of the
absolutely.
information potentially. I mean, to me that actually sounds kind of fucked up. It seems to me like the players. Well, I was comfortable with the idea of the players actually having somebody, one person, if not 2, just for the sake of balance, right? You have 2 from ESL, you have 2 from the teams. Why not have 2 from the players? And so you really have this balance of this 3-way balance between everybody there. That's how I thought it would be set up. If it's not the case, then all of a sudden the whole WESA thing just took a big hit for me in the players' eyes.
Yeah, it's the executive board is Ralph from ESL. It's ESL's international business executive. I didn't get his name. The Dr. Fringuelli is the commissioner. He's like the deciding vote. He's like their 5th guy who sways things. And then I want to say it's the CEO of Fnatic, and I think the other one is either the Mouse Sports guy or the NIP guy.
It's the NIP guy.
The NIP guy. So that's fun.
It's Hisham. And it's like Walter from Fnatic.
Yep.
Ooh, I guess based on their backgrounds, essentially, that they aren't. They were on the board because they don't actually have what Hisham is like. Corporate finance, and then I don't know where Walter comes from. His background, I can't remember, but he's something in that vein, isn't he, Anna?
Yeah.
So I suppose that's the reason why they were brought in there to begin with.
But I mean, it's really interesting that that's the structure too, because when the CEO Fnatic came up when he had his time to speak at the press conference, like his opening line was that the organizations are not always the best representatives for the players. Like his entire like 5-minute segment during that press release was actually like, that was one of the ones I liked the most, because he was like, we don't always represent their best interest, because sometimes they just don't align in how the organizations try and make money and what's best for the players. And his entire thing was, we want to be able to give the players a voice in all the decision making through some kind of structure with WESA or with WESA. And that was everything that he mentioned was why he's interested in working with this project, was giving the players that voice. I wanted to focus on their career development, like finding other things for them to do outside of the game that makes them professionals, that gives them cash revenue, that gives them like income, that gives them things they can do after they're done playing. So he was actually the one to me that seemed like the strongest like pro player voice of everyone on that panel that came up and gave a segment.
I suppose he had to be, considering his predecessor at NIP. For him to be able to actually, get in there and get the player trust, he probably had to do quite a bit for the players. Had to be quite pro player.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one problem, we talked about this earlier, I see at the moment, is when we look at CSGO, and WESA is founded in the context of CSGO. Of course, they want to expand to other games, but it's primarily there to basically provide regulation for the CSGO space. Only ESL is a party to WESA, which means, looking at the tournament landscape, it is highly competitive. We have ECS and we have ELeague as well. And it's going to be a problem if WESA is going to sanction certain behaviors. I'm just looking at an interview with Ralf Reichert, who's going to sit on the board. And he answered a question about what will WESA be sanctioning. He says it sanctions transfer regulation, arbitration, tournament formats. And so, for example, when we talk about transfers and transfer windows and, for example, downtimes for players, which might be a very big interest for players to have some, vacation time, that they don't get burned out or they get injuries from playing too much. If it's only WESA and it's doing it in, let's say, ESL's interest, it can be hard for those other competitors like ECS and ELeague to keep up with it. So my question is, so are they forced to join at some point? Because obviously the teams have made a quite significant choice by joining.
Didn't James
WESA.
Lampkin in his interview say that there was no intent to have them join the league, but that they could be arbitrated over?
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like they just don't care if like teams like they just want to. This is what I don't get. Like their sanction, just like, does it really matter? Like teams are still going to go to it. This is what I don't get about their sanctioning things. Like, yeah, you might not care if they're part of WESA or that they even want the sanction. Like, this is the thing. If WESA comes out and says we're going to sanction this MLG event, does MLG actually even give a shit?
No, they're only sanctioning events who are part of WESA. That's the whole point. Of course, they cannot sanction any tournaments, any tournament formats which are organized by companies who are actually not a part of WESA. That's what I'm saying. So WESA doesn't have any power over what's happening at ECS or ELeague, because they have their own rule set.
I suppose what happens, and this is everybody's big fear, is that eventually the teams and the orgs get influenced to the point that they start demanding certain things that are only possible in, say, an ESL league, and they start demanding that from other leagues, and other leagues are forced to comply in a roundabout way. So WESA doesn't necessarily need to go and say, hey, you're going to do it this way. They could influence things or influence teams and orgs to bring it about regardless. Or is that just like some conspiracy?
Market power, basically. Absolutely. Pardon me? It's just about market power they apply here. But I mean, look, we're already like in this negative corner. I think what's interesting about that, so these rules. So when you look at FIFA, for example, FIFA has a rule set that is, at least on paper, not the worst. Okay, and especially tournament formats, which are tier 2 or tier 3, which we have in esports as well. They usually don't have the money and the infrastructure to come up with their own regulations. So it might be easier for them to simply adapt what WESA is providing. Does it help, gain, power concentrated in WESA? Yes, it does, but it also, at least in my opinion, it would help the scene if even tier 2 and tier 3 tournament formats would have a rule set and arbitration in connection to it. That would help a lot, in my opinion.
Now, am I going off the rails and thinking that all of this is just misdirection? And that Hastro's blog is still the truest press release, I guess, that we've had so far, in which he states this is just about money, basically. And this is about making more money, and through having more money, having an additional revenue stream and a sizable revenue stream coming into the teams and the players, that will strengthen the scene more than any of these rules and regulations and everything that everybody's getting all worked up about.
I think it's one point, of course. I think what Mike said is it's his point, right? And it's probably his main motivator for joining. He's the managing director of one of the leading teams. And for him, one big interest is that we have a sustainable scene with clear rules. And that is also very important for investors. When they look at the scene, they want to have a stable scene. And, of course, I mean, there are two parts to this, okay? One part is regulation, and the other part is this revenue sharing model. And I think revenue sharing is, of course, very important for teams. It's completely normal in traditional sports to give a revenue share of broadcasting rights to teams. And the other one is regulation, which hopefully provides, a clear and good infrastructure. Because we know when let's say arbitrary decisions are taken in esports with permanent bans of players or even owners, looking at League of Legends, not saying it was arbitrary, but it's still a problem because people sometimes can lose their investment in esports just like that, because the structure isn't there. Yeah. And I think WESA can help with that as well.
Can it though? Like if WESA wanted to contest those Valve bans of players, doesn't Valve just say we don't give a shit about you? Or Valve?
Yeah, well, Valve have the golden gun like this entire time. And don't be naive, guys. For those of you guys spamming, where are Valve in this? And, where's Valve? We need them more than ever. It's like, if you think that WESA happened without Valve's sanction and go ahead and thumbs up, you're out of your minds. Well, you're not. You're just naive. Like, Valve control everything about their IP, which is CSGO. If you want to do anything that involves their game, Valve are involved from day one. Because otherwise it just doesn't happen, because they can pull the plug on your nice little project at any point in time. So just keep that in mind, guys.
Maybe I can just intervene here, because I think a lot of people are so interested in, what's going on with permanent bans issued by Valve. What does it really mean?
Well, that's my concern, right? This whole match fixing thing, et cetera, like with the permanent bans, is that something that WESA can try and intervene on, or do Valve just get to say, poo-poo?
Well, look, WESA is in connection, at least that's my understanding. So WESA, the association, works with tournament organizers, and those tournament organizers adopt their rules. So it basically means, for example, if WESA says player X is banned, and everybody who adopts their rule set and involves them, that means, like, everybody working with WESA, that means factually that player is banned. Then, of course, you have Valve, who do simply the same, who say, so those players are banned from, what's their wording, from any tournament where Valve, which is, supported by Valve. So what does that mean factually? It doesn't mean that, we're only talking about majors. All those banned players for match fixing, they're not allowed in any, let's say, interesting tier 1 tournament format, simply because all those tournament organizers are interested in having a good working relationship with Valve. Mm-hmm. So what they simply do is what happens in other industries. They simply blacklist people, and they say, so we have the main market power here with our rights over intellectual property as game publisher, and if you want to stay in our good graces, if you want one of your tournament formats becoming the next major, those people cannot participate in your tournaments, and that's it. So back to your question, WESA and the relationship between WESA and Valve, I think it is Valve's usual approach to be hands-off, at least publicly when it comes to tournament organizing, but I think they will still reserve the power to issue statements like player access ban because of his actions. Mm.
Huh. I don't know. I think
hear a lot of humming.
I'm just thinking. I think it is actually. I want to see WESA like. It would be really cool if, like you said, Valve is involved from day one. I think it'd be really cool if this turned into some kind of ability for them to have like a competitive council. Like where we talk about like, listen, you can't drop major updates in the middle of a season, right? Or you can't drop like massive updates within like a week of an event or 2 weeks of an event. Like all these minor things we've had that like are just like so silly that we still have to deal with them at this day and age in Counter-Strike. Like if WESA can provide something like that, I would actually be pretty pleased with it. But it's just kind of like the biggest fear for me is just, it's not what WESA claims to be right now. It's what does it become a year from now, like 2 years now. And my biggest worry is that the players, like, they need to have involvement. And what it kind of comes down to is the fact that they just don't seem to be paying attention to this kind of stuff. Like this is the time where this is the most important, where we're having all these more money is coming into it, and this is obviously going to happen, whether it was ESL or someone else was going to do this. And if the players like they need to be more involved, they need to be more conscious of what's coming. And it's just a little bit scary that when I talk to them, like they just have no clue. That's what worries me more than even ESL's involvement. Is just the players don't seem interested.
So then we really should get right on this show and ask him about it. I mean,
I asked Get Right about it. I asked Get Right about it at the event, and it's the same thing for the players. It's all a learning experience for them, because right now it's they're just like, well, we're learning as we go right now, and we don't really know what's going on. But we are trying to get more involved, and I'm like, okay, fair enough. So
while trying to get more involved, my recommendation would be demand a seat in the executive committee. I understand.
That's kind of what I would have said as well. That's kind of that's the impression that I was under.
I get it. The structure is 5 people at the moment because you need to have a tiebreaker, right? So if you have a players representative there, you have 6 people. Okay, in my opinion, why not have an additional team representative or an additional tournament organizer representative, which would come from ESL at this point. But it is my strong opinion that if players really care about the influence, they should sit on the board who makes decisions. And this is clearly the executive committee at this point.
Here we come to the root of it all, right? I mean, this is the root of it all in the end, is just that I can imagine ESL trying to have these conversations with the other tournament organizers, i.e. the big ones, right? Face it, etc. But at the end of the day, they're all like, this is where everybody's just like, why is ESL involved? Because you can't have, unless it's completely independent from ESL as just a body that's over here, and ESL is over here, and ESL might have somebody on the board, but then face it, everybody else has one. Like if ESL are the ones who are actually pushing this whole thing, what's the incentive for ESL to bring their competitors in the space onto it as well? Isn't that that's what everybody's talking about? That's what everybody's afraid of. I guess the whole thing is just like, we have to just wait and see. I mean, Moses, Excuse me.
Bless you.
Moses brought this up, right, where it's going to be down to the actions. Unfortunately, ESL have completely fucked the launch up of this thing. So now everybody's just flipping out. It seems to us that we have very little information to go off of. So what's the next option? The next option is basically, well, when a ruling does come out on a big topic, whether that's player transfers, etc., it's like actions are going to speak louder than words in this case, I suppose, and that's just what we have to wait for, right?
Well, you wait for the rulings. I wait for the rules themselves. I think it is very important that we're going to see very transparently what WESA is about, what are the rules which are applied. Given the structure, I would expect that the rule set is very similar to what ESL applies at the moment. One other thing I wanted to point out is that because the narrative has been pretty much that WESA is this very unique structure, and that revenue sharing would be a new topic, and involvement of players and their opinion would be new. It is at least my understanding that what Faceit and Twitch came up with ECS is pretty similar to that. It's simply the PR narrative that's simply not there. But at least, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that ECS is about revenue sharing. They have a player council as well. I don't know if they have arbitration, but they must have a dispute resolution process somewhere. So this is just what I'm wondering. And I think not many people see this. It's not unique what they come up with.
It hasn't been talked about a lot, has it?
Yeah.
I Faceit as well have also done a very poor job of getting the information out there. I mean, they started the qualifiers for their tournament the day they announced the tournament, right? There was no talk, no build-up, no nothing. And it feels like it kind of dropped to the wayside where it's just turned into, oh, it's just another tournament. There was something special about it. What was it again? I can't remember. It's just another tournament to come out, right? I don't know if that's too harsh, but it's how it feels, right? And if you want to look at it that way, it just feels like, in this case, ESL beat Faceit to the punch.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think looking at ECS, I think it has a very innovative structure. This is how Twitch and Faceit come swinging into the competition between tournament organizers, but they simply don't announce it and explain it to the world, which is kind of a shame in my opinion, because I thought when I heard about their players council, I was like, hey, this is a cool idea. Why don't you talk more about it in public?
Lepamaka brings something up in the chat, but ECS doesn't threaten to become exclusive the same way ESL has blatantly tried to do before. To be fair, like when you think about it from a business perspective and how big Faceit want to be, they want to become the biggest league. Hell, they put $3.5 million into their league. They want to be something big. I'm pretty sure that the thought of exclusivity has occurred to them at this point as well. That it's not only ESL that are thinking about how can we come up with the best product? Oh, if we have all of the teams playing exclusively in our league, then the value of that product skyrockets and just goes through the fucking roof. And it's not just ESL thinking about this, it's every tournament organizer thinking about this. And I mean, there's examples of other tournament organizers in the past who have thought about this as well and acted on it. MLG with COD, pretty much same thing, right? So it's a little rich when MLG are like, well, we haven't been contacted about this. Well, it's just like, well, you guys have run exclusive leagues in the past and benefited from it. So, not everybody. This is a business, and it's all about competition between these different businesses, guys, at the same time. So you have to keep that in mind as well. It's not just like this guy's fucking evil and these guys are great. It's like actually, it's a lot of shades of gray that we have to look at and constantly sift through whatever information we can get on the topic.
Well, and also too, I mean, one of the stances that was taken is always, we can't. How do you hype up a match? Like every other league is able to say, yeah, we're going to have our matches every Tuesday of the week. You're going to be able to tune in every Tuesday. You'll find a match. They want to have structure. They want to have stability so they can bring in more sponsors. That's what's looked for. And the only way to do that is to have a schedule that you can control. And that just says exclusivity. And while none of these teams want to come out and say it because that's kind of a really negative buzzword at the moment, I think it's only a matter of time before someone actually makes that big play, that big grab at some point in the near future, because you can't hype up a match. You can't have excitement in your league if two teams are just, you know, playing every 3 or 4 days. And we've been talking about this for a year now. The schedule is insane. And if you're able to slow down the schedule and you're able to have an exclusive league where yours is the only schedule out there, yours is the only matches, that alleviates a lot of pressure. So I think that no matter what happens, yeah, it is kind of, every league is looking to have that control of the schedule moving forward, even if they don't say it.
I mean, let's be honest. At this point, at the moment, I think so. There's an upside to this competition. Okay, the schedule is insane, and we have kind of an oversaturation from a fan perspective. At least I can say, it's really impossible for me to watch all the games, right? When you have a normal job, like how can you watch everything that's on like all the time? But on the other hand, it puts the teams in this very, let's say, powerful position where they can just pick what is interesting to them. So, of course, money is a big motivator. So they're going to pick all the tournaments which offer the most prize money, right? And that's great. And I think that also brings, those opportunities once we have one league. Those opportunities go away. So
you think of those opportunities? Wait, hold on. What?
I mean, just imagine if you had like one exclusive league, okay, and then competition is dead. With the monopoly, competition is dead,
yes,
and this means you better make sure that the moment you go exclusive, you get a really, really, really good deal, because otherwise it's probably not worth it. But I mean, it would be interesting to talk to a player about it, because I think the schedule at the moment, they're not having a lot of vacation, and people, they have to drop out because of injuries. Why? Because they play all the time. Of course, your body gets tired if you have to play like all the time in tournaments and train for them.
Yeah, the monopoly question is an interesting one. I mean, we already have examples of that with the LCS, right? LCS and Riot. I mean, from a commentary point of view, look at what just happened with Monte Cristo and the others. So, I mean, because basically they tried to say, hey, we want to have more money based on our market value. And Riot were basically like, well, we're the only game in town, so why should we pay you more money?
Yeah, exactly.
That can definitely, I mean, that's why you have to, as you say, have the perfect deal going into it right off the bat. I mean, having an exclusivity deal and having a players union set up could potentially lead to that, because as I'm saying, right, if money goes up, then there's more of that money to go around. And maybe we actually start looking at players having those $1 million deals like in mainstream sports versus versus what they get now, where they're always going to feel like I need to make more because I have a very short lifespan in this industry. And so yeah. I am encouraged to play in every league that I can, because what I'm making is not, fuck off money. It's very much, oh, maybe I can last a couple of years off of this, right? But then after that, I'm going to have to go and work at McDonald's or something. So, I don't know. There's so many different things. There's so many fucking different things, right?
I think it's interesting when you talk about when exclusivity is talked about, because I think it's going on in Riot right now, and you might know a little bit more about that, but it's the player or the teams, the teams want to sign into this exclusivity, but they want to make sure that their team brand is always going to be involved no matter how poorly they play in terms of relegation and everything like that. So the players and teams actually have a different interest when it comes to being exclusive, because the organizations, those brands, always want to have, no matter what happens, they want to have those same 15 orgs that maybe bring in different players every season if need be. But like the team brands, is that something that's going on in LCS right now?
Jason, do you think players want to be relegated?
No. I'm not saying that.
Sorry, I don't get it. No, I can. Of course, I can explain what's going on with LCS and how the structure is there and how it works with the monopoly, and how it is basically the opposite of what's going on in CS:GO at the moment. And of course, I'm not a big fan of this monopolist structure at the moment in League of Legends, because when you look at it, teams don't have a lot of leverage when negotiating anything in this league. And what has just happened is that certain team owners got banned from LCS because of violations of Riot's rule set. Right. And those guys simply lost their business. Okay, they had to sell their spot within 10 days. Envious bought one of those spots for I think 1.2 or 3 million. Not sure what the article said. Yeah, Envious bought into LCS. You didn't know that?
I did.
Yeah, Hastro.
There's been so much shit going on.
Oh my God, August. Maybe you shouldn't keep looking for your passport, but rather okay. So, but yeah, so they bought a spot in the NA LCS, and I'm just saying this structure. Usually if you have a structure where teams have more power and where you have a committee, they could put their foot down and say this is proportionate, this decision to ban someone, to lose your business. Because the point I wanted to make is that the money Renegades got from Envious is clearly below market price because they had to sell in a very short amount of time. Yeah, so, but it's not at the moment, it's not a franchise still. LCS still has, relegation going on. Of course, teams don't want that. They want more value for the spots they have at the moment. But to be honest, in my opinion, relegation is always a good thing to have great competition. And
for sure, because everybody is just battling not to get relegated. They don't give a fuck about winning the damn thing.
Come on, man.
They're just like, so long as I am
well,
still
in League of Legends, you're not going to win worlds because
I can
you're
be
not
before
from
last. I can be before. If I can do that, it's like Envy in Pro League this season. It's just like, so long as I'm not relegated, it's all right. It's all right.
Yeah, but see, look, the funny thing is also about this monopoly structure. So in CSGO, it's really a business having a CSGO team because you can make so much money from prize money. And now you can even make more with this revenue sharing model in broadcasting rights. So let's look at League of Legends. What has this monopoly structure led to? No real increase in prize money. No real, there are no opportunities for international tournaments besides those organized by Riot. In my opinion, when it comes, to smart business decisions, having a League of Legends team, it's not the greatest business in the world, to be honest. A CSGO team makes much, a successful CSGO team makes much more money. And it is because of the market structure, and it's because we don't have a monopoly in CSGO over tournament organization.
Mm. Yeah.
I mean, I guess as far as viewership is concerned, I was just looking at, there was what is it, a stat that just came out, a graph that I just saw yesterday that apparently, we've gone up like 30 million hours watched or something crazy compared to last year.
Are you talking about that Twitch infographic?
Yeah, wasn't that came out where we're still second, but we've gone up in hours watched by 50 or 100% or something crazy. So well, I don't know. I don't have it, Phil. Sorry,
I got it.
I'm just going off of my head. What I'm wondering is if what we're going to see is CS:GO is already much bigger than Dota, right? But what we saw with Dota, at least what I remember, what we saw with Dota is that there were still viewers. It's just that there we go. Thanks, we got it now. So I mean, there were still viewers for Dota. They just got spread out more. So you weren't seeing those big spikes in numbers anymore. Where it's like, oh, big fat fucking number, wow, 300K. It was more like you just had 10 streams with 50K or something, right? And it just all flattens out basically. So you're still seeing all the viewers. It's just it's not like big spiked viewers, basically, is what I'm trying to get out here. Yeah. I don't know what the fuck kind of point I'm trying to make here. I'm a little tired. All right, so the point of oversaturation or whatever, it's just people are going to still be watching the games. It's just going to be a little bit more spread out. It won't be like it used to be where there was one stream per night, and so that's where everybody congregates. That's where everybody goes. So
I think the main point of the oversaturation is more just the missed opportunities of being able to have that, like, some big, like, we can't, like, you think of all the storylines we try to build, like, who wants to watch Fnatic versus Envy 3 times, you know? Well, I mean, right now no one really wants to watch. Who wants to watch Luminosity versus Navi like 3 times in a week? You can't get excited for it. It's like, oh, I don't need to tune into. And I think this is where all the leagues are kind of getting into wanting to have more exclusivity or more access to the schedule, is where it's like no one's gonna care about watching our LG versus Navi match if they're playing 2 days later on another league. Like, you can't really build anything around it.
Yeah,
no,
you can't really build the hype.
And tournament organizers are also, no, I was just saying, tournament organizers also, of course, Riot has a big interest, you know, having features about their League of Legends teams and their stories. And I'm not saying they're doing great stuff. Like, the videos about the last tournament were atrocious, but
bad statistics. For those of you saying bad statistics, and sorry, I keep cutting you off. God, no, I'm paying attention to the chat.
Go ahead,
I'm paying attention to the chat, and for those of you saying bad statistics right now, you know, it's like unique viewers, all that stuff has gone out the window. As far if who knows if these stats are correct, but the metric that they're using, hours watched, is the one that everybody's talking about now, basically.
Yeah.
Like, that is the relevant statistic, like, or metric that you want to be tracking right now on your streams, is how many hours are consumed. And I think when you consider, like, TV, where it's like the average, like, it's what, like 15, 20, it's like something ridiculously low compared to esports, where people are like averaging out at hours at a time. It's nuts, the retention rate that esports streams have, which is why most Skrilla bring in the marketing people. All right. Right. Back to the point. Sorry, Anna. What are we going to talk about next?
I just wanted to say, of course, it's not that attractive to tournament organizers such as ESL, ECS, etc., to pump money into, you know, producing features and coming up with, you know, great storylines, because this would mean they invest into other tournament formats as well, and that's just not beneficial for them at this point, I think, which is kind of unfortunate for the fans as well. Yeah.
All right. So it feels like we've covered quite a bit on the WESA thing. Can anybody think of what stands out, apart from we need to see the rules? We need to know what actually makes this thing tick. How much of a say do ESL have? Well, I mean, they have 2 board members apparently. Will a player ever, you know, representative ever be allowed onto the board where he can actually have an influence instead of just being like, oh, that's good, that's nice. Now go play in the corner with your AK. Okay, thank you. What, you know, like, when does that happen?
There he is.
Well, I think it's just important that maybe WESA takes a look at recommendations, Transparency International, you know, handed to FIFA. And I think financial transparency is also very important. I think that's also a point that was not very well covered in the press conference or anybody, you know, anywhere else. There are hints here and there that the teams make a small contribution, but, you know, they also gain a lot from the revenue sharing. And I think that has to be publicly published to give transparency, also as a preventative measure to corruption, to be honest, because what we don't want is a potentially corrupt body. They've just started out, and I really want them to succeed. So, you know, just apply those lessons learned, have transparency, especially financial transparency. Independent oversight is another thing. We don't know who their auditors are. Are they financially independent from, you know, ESL or any other party involved or not? And I mean, there are other things that are very important. So, for example, I mean, something that has come up within FIFA are safeguards to protect human rights. I think it would be, because they're talking about standardized player contracts. Who makes sure that these player contracts are really a good fit for the players? And so lastly, sorry guys, I have to go soon, but I think it's very important, you know, my message of the day to the players is get a seat on that board. Do it. Just, you know, make sure that you have formal influence, that that goes beyond the role of an advisor, because people are not, being an
Preach
advisor.
It, Anna. Preach it.
Oh. Yeah. No, but it's true. Being an advisor, I can tell you how it goes. You go to the players and say, "Oh, would you like to advise, on the procedure when a player gets tested about substance abuse?" And it's like, "Yeah, no, I'm gonna go train. I'm gonna go play or stream or whatever. I'm not interested in that." But if somebody says like, "Oh, would you be interested to sit on a board where we decide if somebody gets banned or not?" Hell yeah, everybody wants to sit there. And I think that's the important part. Get somewhere, find your place in this structure where you have real influence. So that's my message of the day. And now I'm out, okay?
Boom!
That's like some Sesame Street type shit.
I know, right?
Rob. Bye, guys.
Message of the day.
Who ain't got shit on Anna? Right. Bye, Anna.
Bye, ciao, guys.
I love it.
Yeah, why not?
It is, but it is true. It feels like there's this complacency that's been with the players, right? Or the players have fallen into this like sense of, it's just like it feels like they're getting complacent. It's like, okay, we're making skrill. Do we want to upset the boat? Do we upset the money boat, right? Or by trying to stand up and actually taking a fight that's not going to be pleasant, and that you might run a risk with actually. With what happens next, right? You might be risking your income by standing up and starting to try to speak out and make things better. But I think that it has to happen at some point. But I don't think that it should be a player. It should be the players at this point have to come together, and they have to pay somebody who is experienced in the field, a union head, something. Pay somebody, and it is his sole purpose in life to get them the best possible conditions. Like that's how it has to go, right? Because if it's going to be a player sitting on that board, it's just not possible. A player doesn't have time to get his head around everything. It doesn't have the experience to deal with these sharks that are going to be sitting. You've got like corporate finance background, CEO of the biggest esports company in the world background, right? Like these guys are sharks. They will rip you limb from limb if you don't have the experience to hang with them, right? So they need to find somebody quick who has that experience and who can actually look out for their interests.
Yeah, and that's the scary thing, right? Where do they get that? And like, how do they even? But that once again comes into the fact that they need to have the time and the desire to come together and make that decision and like figure out. Everyone puts in 5% or whatever it might be. Everyone throws in like X amount of money off your winnings or this amount per year or something like that to pay this guy. And I think that's the one big achievement of WESA, and something that the players need, like that needs to happen, is like WESA was able to bring all these organizations together to even get this done. That has to be so difficult to even do that. And then when you ask players to do it, it's just like I feel like that is such a tough ask to get players to come together, even outside of the organization, and just say we need someone who can represent us in some way.
Especially because they've done it in the past, right? Or they've tried to.
Yeah. Well, and look at how many players there are. Like, what happens if you have like 55% of it agree on one guy for, like, there's such a big split over people who say, yeah, we don't like this guy. And we don't like this guy. I remember Richard talking about it when he wanted to do something. He said that a lot of players, especially in North America, didn't want him to be the head of it because he had reported wrongdoings of players in the past, and they didn't feel he had their best interests. So there's always going to be, that those prejudices that block this, and that just makes it so difficult.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point to bring up. It feels like it just has to be like, look at where, but I mean, we have the example here from WESA, right? WESA, they didn't go to somebody who was in esports. They went to somebody who was in, in air quotes, the real world of FIFA, UEFA, et cetera, one of the biggest law firms in Europe. They went to this guy to help them actually make this possible. So it's got to be that as well. You have to actually find somebody who is completely outside of the esports field, who has no history in it, but who can learn or has an interest. And get this person. I know it's like, hey, let me walk out back real quick. I think I've got a unicorn out there, like, how are you going to make that happen, right? I know it sounds impossible, but, it would have sounded impossible to me to get these teams together to begin with, right? So already, yeah, you're right. Hats off to ESL. I guess, the great unifier, right? The great unifier is, and, if you got it, the players have got it, maybe something can actually happen there.
Maybe it all works out. An ongoing saga.
I know, right? I know. Don't even want to offend him or something. All right. Let me see. What can we do next, man? I mean, it's 5:30. I think we've been going for roughly an hour on the WESA topic. There is Pro League that we could talk about. What else? Because there's.
What'd you have on the docket?
Pardon me?
What else did you have on the docket outside of Pro League?
Dude, I've been dealing with like so much shit for this travel thing that's coming up in Baltimore.
Naturally.
That unfortunately some things took a back seat, including the show, because I felt like, well, we'll talk about WESA.
Start of ELeague is up there.
Start of ELeague is out there, yeah.
That's next week.
I mean, that is next week. They've started actually leaking. Obviously the Shaq endorsement thing that came out, that video, the ad that Shaq did recently, Shaqaflage and stuff like that. So that was pretty incredible. It was pretty good. So I mean, they're starting to actually pump some stuff into it, but it still feels like it's been very quiet. Very quiet for something that's supposed to be this big, right? So what have we had?
It's a calm before the storm.
I guess so, right? But where's the build up? I want that build up. Because we know that they've been sending camera crews for the past several months to events, to actually get people or get background stories, etc., on people and all that sort of stuff on the players and all that. So it's like, are they gonna? I guess they're saving all of that for the actual broadcast to really knock it out of the park when the actual broadcast comes around, instead of using it as promotional material to come out and try and big up the league beforehand.
Yeah, they sent a camera crew to Australia when Renegades signed in. They like, it was next day. It was just like let's go. So
yeah, posters and billboards in NA with players. Oh, sick.
In New York, and then they also had who was it? Was it Zeus who's on one in Eastern Europe? Can't remember where exactly it was. Someone from Navi's on like a bunch of posters over in Eastern Europe.
Damn. Okay. How have I not seen any of this? I feel like I'm totally out of the loop on this stuff.
Yeah.
I think while Phil is readjusting our cameras, we might actually look to bring a third guest on. So let's go ahead and take a quick 5-minute break.
Cool.
And when we come back, we'll be talking about ELeague and about Pro League and about ECS, if ECS is even worth talking about these days. So we'll be back in 5 minutes, guys. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for being patient during that short break. 5 minutes, I know it can feel like a while sometimes. Feel like an eternity. So there you go. I hope that you guys are back with us in the realm of reality. So what's going on? It's ELeague. That's what's coming up next week. We weren't, it's a bit short notice, so we weren't able to bring anybody on with us. And really, the show's only really going to go on for another 20 minutes or so because I have to rush back home. So we'll just, Moses and I, we'll just go over ELeague real quick. First couple weeks, we have the groups, give our initial thoughts, all that jazz. So, Moses, how big of a hard-on do you have knowing that there's a massive televised league happening in
NA? Pretty big hard-on, actually. It's pretty massive. It's
banana.
At the point where I should
banana
probably.
For scale?
Yeah. Big banana. It's like one of those hard-ons where you probably should go to the hospital. It's been going on for a while. It's lasted too long. Might have to relieve some pressure. Enough about my dick. Let's talk about Group A. Because this is actually... Why not? This is actually... See, the cool thing about ELeague, this is where Group A is a little bit upsetting to me just because it has so many teams, 4 teams that are all already competing in North American region, which is a bit of a bummer. But because like the appeal to me was like maybe these NA teams are going to be in Atlanta with some European teams for like 3 or 4 weeks. They'll be able to get some practice in with some other competition, and they've had to change that as they added teams, and they've changed the format a couple times. So it's only going to be these teams in Atlanta for 1 week at a time, and then the first group is all NA. Like I said, it's Luminosity, Liquid, Cloud9, and Renegades. All of who compete with each other in the in Pro League in North America. So that's pretty interesting, actually, that it's so North American heavy. But I think the big question mark, obviously, is that I think Luminosity is definitely the obvious favorites to take number 1 in that group. Yeah. It's all about who's going to come up next.
You're right. I mean, talking about when we were talking about that earlier, right? When you're having the same matchups over and over, we're hoping for a little bit of variety there, maybe 50-50, right? Splits in the groups between NA and EU. But this seems more like travel to me. It's just like European teams were like, actually, we want to have a week, or it's ECS that's going on, and there's still European games that need to get played out in ECS, and so the teams, they couldn't quite make it due to scheduling. Maybe something like that is what's happened here. So, let's not throw ELeague under the bus quite yet. There's like we've been talking about for an hour. There's other leagues involved.
Yeah.
So,
no, definitely not trying to throw ELeague under the bus there. But yeah, it is. I think that's going to be an interesting group. Because it's so funny. I mean, Liquid just brought in Peacemaker as a coach, who's got that Brazilian flair to him, that Brazilian style. He brought Tempo Storm up out of nowhere, so that could be a addition for them. But just waiting, like this is what's so funny is my heart can't get broken somewhere. My heart can't possibly get broken in this group. Because it's always Cloud9 that disappoints. It's always like Liquid who disappoints. So there's no possible way that they can disappoint in a group of all NA teams.
So, what would happen is basically, you see that GIF that's been going around of a diamond getting crushed by a hydraulic press? That's what's going to happen when they lose to Renegades. Not Luminosity. When they lose to Renegades, your heart that you thought had hardened, through compression and tears and so much, heartache basically from watching North American teams fail repeatedly. Oh. You thought that it was invulnerable now, right? That it couldn't get any harder and more compact. And then that Australian hydraulic press is going to come in and just shatter it.
Really though, Australian hydraulic press for Renegades? Is that really what the label you want to attach to them? A hydraulic press, the power?
Well, that's the thing, right? Because a hydraulic press, it doesn't really look that threatening, right? It's just there. It's like a piston, doesn't look like it's going to mess you up, right? But then you get caught in there because Sponge is like you, man. Sponge has taken a lot of hits, and through that, terrible pressure put on him by the community, by the teams, by the leagues, he's just been getting tighter and tighter and tighter. I know this looks right. He's just been, getting, sure that, he's going to come in there and just crush through this North American team because they got a lot to prove.
Nah, I think Liquid's gonna body Renegades. I really think they are. You don't think that, do you? Who do you have going out? Who do you have going out behind Luminosity in this group?
Let me see. Who do I have going out with Luminosity? We're going out of the group. Yeah, okay. Luminosity out of the group, as in going home. Cloud9. I think we can all say that Luminosity pretty heavily favored to get through. I'm just worried about them, once again, blowing off steam, maybe letting a little pressure off themselves because they just won another massive tournament, like $200,000 paycheck in their pockets, right? So I'm hoping that they don't, slack off a little bit too much, right, and come into this sharp and ready. And
I would be surprised if Luminosity wasn't just taking the week off.
Yeah, take the week off and just completely
just chill. Set. So I actually have Luminosity and Liquid coming out of that group, obviously.
I think that's probably the easy one to go for, right? Just what have Cloud9 shown with Slemmy? Unfortunately, Slemmy hasn't really shown too much. I mean, he's
not against Europeans. He did okay against NA teams in Austin. He was never really putting up a massive amount of frags, but he had his impact. He reminded me a lot of Pronax, not in terms of his actual ability to be a tactician or control the map or anything like that, but the sense that Pronax on Fnatic never really put up huge numbers when he had everyone around him, but he always had those clutch rounds. He always won a 1-on-2 here or there. He had a couple really impactful double or triple kills here or there. So that was kind of what Slemmy is against North American teams. I think we saw how outclassed he is at the moment against European teams for sure.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Could be nerves, could be something else. Just not used to the styles. I don't know. Just seems like he needs to get a little bit more experience. So yeah, I could see Cloud9 taking third, and then I guess the way that this group is set up is it's easy. It's on Team Liquid, right? It's actually on the Liquipedia, right? That's what we're using. Sorry, Peter, HLTV. But yeah, Luminosity.
I'm on HLTV, so we're representing everything here.
You're on HLTV?
Yeah. Right,
so we got there's a balance.
Yeah, no worries.
See? This is why you're on fire now, man. It's just feed each other's minds, and we see how it got. It's all good, man. That hive mind. All right, so that's Group A. I mean, what's interesting is that I don't know. Do you have it on HLTV? Because I don't have a tournament format here. as to like how these groups are actually going to play out.
Okay, so I'll just read this. 4 teams will be at Turner's Atlanta Studios per week during the group stage, which will consist of 2 parts: a double round robin phase and a single elimination best of 3 brackets. Teams will face each other twice on Tuesdays and Wednesdays in best of 1 matches to determine the placement in the group's bracket. The group winners, and then I'm assuming that bracket is like Thursday. Most of the bracket plays out in that single elimination BO3, and then 2 top from the group essentially go to the Friday matchup.
Right.
And the winners of that go straight to like the overall league playoffs, and then the runners up get like a last chance qualifier, which is scheduled, I think, for the week after Cologne. It's week 8, because I think week 7 is that break for Cologne.
Yeah, exactly. But that is what's happening. The break for Cologne on week 7, when there was a break that was scheduled already. So yeah, it's looking like 6 matches on the first 2 days, and then 2 best of 3s, and then obviously on the last day, which will be televised, it'll be the last the final best of 3 to sort out who's moving on into that later playoff bracket. So
yeah.
I guess we'll have to just see how this plays out. Liquid, Renegades, I'm very curious to see how Renegades fare. I would love to see them as a dark horse in this, but it really is a bit of a stretch.
I mean, let's be honest. When you're in a group with Liquid and Cloud9, and like everyone's a dark horse. Like there's nothing set in stone there. We've seen them have blow some big leads. So we'll just put it that way. So yeah, definitely. I don't know if I call them a dark horse, because I don't think they're that far out of the realm of possibility to be labeled as a dark horse. I feel like you have to be a pretty big underdog to be a dark horse in a group, but those bottom 3 spots are pretty up in the air, especially when you consider BO1s on the first 2 days. So yeah, it is going to depend a lot. I think the big thing is just whoever gets last in that group is just going to be out. Yeah. Like whoever has to play Luminosity on Thursday in a BO3, it's don't see too much of an opportunity to win that one. But yeah, so Group B.
Yeah, let's move on to Group B, which consists of NIP, G2, Tyloo, and Optic Gaming. Oh, buddy.
This one's interesting, isn't it? After we just saw G2.
I love this. We saw a crazy performance from Optic at ASL, where they managed to, lead to the expulsion of Astralis from the tournament by beating them best of 1 on Inferno. So played like they were hitting way above their weight there. Things got back in line, later on into the tournament, but there was like a brief glimpse of what Optic are capable of, which was interesting. Tyloo, I think, has been impressing a lot of people recently as well. The fact that they have their coach, who seems to be one of the hardest working people in the CS scene right now, just with how much work he's doing to get that team prepared for their matches. And then you have NIP and G2. G2 right now, man, it's like the Shoxy and Scream show. It's nuts how like the level that those guys are hitting.
That was disgusting yesterday, wasn't it? The match against Virtus Pro, those two. Like, there's so many highlight clips just from that series.
Yeah.
That was pretty disgusting. And yeah, because this has always been the question with G2, right? Are we going to get Shox? Are we going to get him back? And we say this every broadcast, for people who weren't tuning in like 2013, early 2014, Shox was like an absolute monster. He was like the best player in the world during that stretch. So it seemed like he got a little bit into that mode at Pro League, and now this is all coming together. So hopefully they can keep that up into the second week. NIP actually, I was pretty high on NIP after Malmo. I was pretty impressed with them, and they actually disappointed me a little bit at ESL. I mean, they did lose to Luminosity, so I guess it's not like the biggest thing in the world, but I don't know.
Well, maybe
how high are you on NIP?
Pardon me?
How high are you on NIP?
I'm not like I'm like, man, there's a bunch of like I'm kind of just like a little toasty, right? I'm not super slammed on them.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm kind of in the middle, right? I feel like it's a return to the form of old, which is really interesting. Pyth coming into its threat. We've seen that constant change now where they're introducing new tactics into their team when their team used to rely almost solely on entry frags and straight up duels and kills. Get Right's been showing a little bit of a return to form as well, which is really interesting. But does that put it all together? Do they have the explosive players like Shox and Scream on the roster right now who are able to just take over matches on their own and just completely dominate?
I mean,
I'm not feeling it as much as I am G2 right now, to be frank.
Really? Okay.
I'm thinking G2 have a good shot at upsetting NIP, taking that first spot, and then I would assume NIP takes second spot. Although with Tyloo in the mix, Tyloo is just such a hard one. Do you want to just like go? Yep, that's right. Tyloo are here to play. Do you in best of ones, in a series of best of ones, could they actually, go forward and upset?
Yeah, that is the big thing. Those BO1s will be an advantage for them. But I think they're going to come into this, and I think guys like Threat, I don't know who's going to do it on G2, but I think guys like Threat for NIP are going to put some research into Tyloo at this point. Mm-hmm. I think Tyloo's pretty much done with the time of being able to fly under the radar and come in and just kind of surprise people. So that'll be really interesting to see if they're able to adapt in any way. But I think NIP is going to be very much prepared for Tyloo. I do have NIP going out first. I said I'm pretty high on them. I would imagine G2 would be second. And yeah, I have Tyloo and Optic going out. I'm still not that. Optic doesn't intrigue me. I know that's a little bit unfair. I might be a little bit prejudiced against them. Okay. But yeah, that was a cool showing against Astralis. I think Astralis really fucked up that veto that would allow Inferno to go through, because that's been Optic's map for however long I can remember. So for them,
that's fair.
That seemed a little bit cocky of Astralis to just let that kind of slide through. And then obviously they didn't look that great. But yeah, I have Optic getting beat even by Tyloo in a BO1.
Yeah, I could see Tyloo just like crushing Optic. I don't see I don't know if Optic are going to be able to do that kind of research the way that Threat would, to be able to just like break down a team and figure out what makes them tick and how to disassemble them, right? Optic will probably be more like, okay, we'll just stick to our game plan and try and go in and.
Yeah, and the other thing for me too with Optic is like a guy like Rush had a fantastic. I mean, you remember they beat Astralis. Rush had like 20 some kills. He won like a 1-on-4 against them, like defending the B bomb site in a post plant. Like Rush is a player that like most other of the stars that I see in NA has the talent, has the capability. We just don't see it, and we like often enough, and we don't see it consistently. So I mean, they're still at that point now where you have to question if they're going to be able to bring it to the level that they did against Astralis. At Pro League, I don't have that confidence that they're going to be able to come into ELeague and have that against G2, have that against Tyloo, have it against NIP. I think that's going to be kind of a big wake up call. Although the good sign was, even with that success over Astralis, like they were really disappointed that they didn't make it through. They were actually pretty crushed, which was good to see. Not good to see. Well, actually, no, good to see a North American team just devastated by not making it out of groups, that they weren't just like content with the fact that they had that good upset against a European team.
I totally agree with you there. Not just accepting it for, like, oh, well, just another tournament. We made it, guys. We did our best, blah, blah. Like, that's the kind of hunger that you need if you're going to improve. And so
I think that actually is a big issue with North American teams. I think they have kind of settled to the point where they're like, oh, yeah, we went out in groups. And, yeah, they're practicing and they want to practice hard. But I don't see any, evidence of practice. It seems like they're just practicing the things that they've been doing to try and improve on them. But they're not actually, like, changing anything that, like, doesn't work. I don't often see, like, a North American team come in with, like, a new style or a new way to utilize a player or someone actually trying to take control of the game. I feel like I'm seeing the same repetition of how they're playing, and they've just practiced it more, and it's just all about if the players turn up or not. And that worries me a little bit. So hopefully, especially for like someone like Liquid and Cloud9, those two teams I always look at to be like, they need to be the forefront of North American Counter-Strike, right? We need to have one of those teams be the dominant North American team. So I'm hoping Peacemaker just comes in and just lays down the law on Liquid. I think that'd be really, really cool.
They're going to turn to steam, like superheated steam, basically. That Brazilian fire clashing with the, obviously the North American Liquid. But which is more powerful, man? If we want to go back, the great Bruce Lee, and it's like, be like water, right? So I think it has to, maybe what he needs to do, instead of just, like vaporizing them, right, and turning them into this thing that can just like move through anything at all. Well, I don't know where I'm going with this, but basically, he needs to just warm them up a little bit. He doesn't want them to evaporate. He just wants to warm them up a little bit.
So he wants it to be like simmering, not quite boiling.
That's what I'm thinking, right?
Okay.
Not quite boiling, because then you start making mistakes. Then you start getting, you start letting your emotions get to you, and then, it just gets too hectic, right? So they just need to be at a nice little simmer. Let them, cook that pasta at a reasonable rate. All right, let's go ahead and move into Group 3 now. The last group that we're going to get to talk about, because the other groups aren't announced yet. So it's finally another. We've had a couple of European teams, at least in Group B. But the team that we've been talking about, versus Optic, Astralis, are in Group C, along with CLG, SK Gaming, and Energy Esports. So what I'm curious about, man, is whether or not Shaq is going to show up for Energy. when they.
You know he is. You know that's going to be like the main promo for when Energy's coming in, and Shaq is just going to be everywhere. Yeah. He's going to be an Energy jersey, Energy hoodie. Yeah, right. How nervous would you be if, like, instead of like your normal coach or something, like the Energy doesn't even have a coach, I don't think. But like, what if Shaq just comes in and stands behind him for a couple matches? No idea what he's talking about. Of course, he's just standing there, just pumping people up. How funny would that be?
He can be that like Jason Lake, cheerleader coach, where he's just like, "Come on, guys, show some hustle."
Kicking chairs.
Take that ball away from take that frag away from them. Like, I don't know. It could be something, right?
It'd be so good.
But I can't wait for that. Feel like this one is also kind of like it should be clear cut that it should be, because this will also be on LAN, so you'll have that little increase in skill when it comes to CLG. It feels like it should be Astralis and CLG making it out, and SK Gaming and NRG.
Does it though? CLG just dropped Fugly.
Just what?
They dropped Fugly.
It's true.
After Pro League, so we don't know who's even going to be their fifth.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. The Fugly thing, right?
And also, I mean, I know this is just standard me. I've never really had a lot of faith in CLG, like, ever. Thorn always makes fun of me because CLG is like the one team in North America that I've never like predicted to get out of a group or like win matches and stuff. Like, I've done it a couple times, but like,
and they're the only ones actually doing anything.
Well, hey, Liquid made it farther.
Okay, Liquid, yeah, at the major, yeah, sure.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I for whatever reason, I'm just like not very high on CLG. And now that with Fugly leaving, I don't think he was like an integral piece to the puzzle that was CLG. But I still think that is, it's almost too much of a question mark now even for me. So that'll be interesting to see. I think SK, it's so like these bottom three teams are just, they're all the same to me. Like, they're teams who have shown stuff, but then like whenever they show something good, the next event they come out and just get bodied.
Yeah. It's true. Maybe they're a fan of that, Maybe they're gluttons for punishment, right? As soon as things start going right in their heads, they're like, oh, no, I've been naughty, I've been bad. And then they get punished a little bit, right? And then they feel better again. Yeah. Then they go and do their thing, right? And it's just a cycle that they're stuck with, that they're just, it's a tower of power, man. What I'm curious about is, like, are CLG going to be able to find a fifth, and are they going to lock that fifth into a contract to play with the team before this league kicks off, or are they going to just try and find a stand-in and keep their options open and start shopping around a little bit? There's going to be European players who are over here in that time span. Could be an opportunity for them to actually like talk to some European players and see if anybody's going to be interested, in going for the great leap across the lake, right?
I think if I'm CLG, I go for the stand-in route and just say whoever you bring in, put them on like a trial contract or whatever it is, whatever they're called these days, whatever the kids are naming them. Whatever TSM did, they had like Vice and Sick on the trial contract, and they ended up dropping Vice or something like that. And like that doesn't lock them in, that doesn't give them any obligation, just kind of have it so they can't play for anyone during that period or something like that. But yeah, I would definitely do that, and then maybe talk to someone from, I don't even know. Maybe get the feelers out, talk to Astralis, talk to SK, and just say, is there anyone in Europe that you would consider we should look at, or give us a name that we can talk to. But I think actually this next pickup for CLG, whoever they bring in as their fifth, I think that's going to be such an important pickup for that team, because there's not, this core of 4 people cannot go on much longer without having results, right? Like, how long? Yeah. Even the core 3 of like, hey, not even JDM in there, but Hayes, Cutler. And my brain's not even working right now.
Who is?
Shouldn't have done this. Shouldn't have done this. Who
is the fourth?
But anyways, these cores could not keep going.
Who? Tell me. No. Tell me. How is this?
All right. It's JDM. It's Cutler. It's Hayes. It was Fugly. See, now that my brain's stuck on it.
I'm just gonna take my shirt off.
It's like, I'm just gonna take my shirt off. It's like the biggest name on the team. What is wrong with me? But that core of 3 literally cannot keep going this way without showing any major signs of consistent improvement. What the hell's wrong with me, Sembler?
Dude, it happened to me too. Actually, I'm not gonna lie. I was just like, who? Because it's just like it's always all eyes on Hayes and JDM. Hayes, if they win, generally he's playing well. Otherwise, no. JDM just consistently putting in work and being pretty resilient for the team. But then, Tarek, I think that we've all been so frustrated with Tarek's play for so long that we actually just kind of like excised that part of our brain that stores Tarek, and just thrown it as trash, right? And just said, I'm done with you. I'm done.
Harsh.
That's it.
That's harsh. Actually, I think Tarek's been playing really well lately. I think he has.
Oh yeah. It's that whole like cycle of punishment thing that we were talking about there for a minute, Moses. He's been set free for a little bit, but pretty soon, the mistress will have him back. Don't worry.
Oh God. But yeah, so out of this group, Astralis you have to put first, but Jesus, have they been in a tough spot these past 2 events? Mm-hmm. I just can't imagine a world where they drop out of this group. And then I think once again, much like Group A, I think CLG, SK, Energy, it's all kind of up in the air.
It's not really pretty. Without a fifth, I mean, but that would be just and losing to SK or Energy. Well, actually, I wouldn't even put it past Astralis. Astralis have always struggled against other Danish teams. Maybe we got another upset coming.
No, there's no way.
Maybe we got another upset coming.
There's no way.
Good job. SK and Danish. They just happen to be Danish. This is when. Well, I'm hoping that Freeze is recovered by then and is able to make the trip over, because he's recently had hip surgery, right? He's had like some congenital thing or whatever that's caused him a lot of pain, and so he's recently had surgery for like a second time or something crazy to like try and fix this. And so I hope that he's fit enough to be able to actually get on the road and go over there, because otherwise then it's going to be really awkward. We're going to have 2 teams in this group with like a 5th man who's just recently joined or who's a stand-in. This is going to kind of skew things. And then you got Energy. But Peter's on there, man. Peter's a homie. He's like, consistently positive, no matter the odds.
Yeah, no, not really. I don't think so. Peter is actually one of like the mentally like toughest people on himself. Like that's his big thing, where he always struggles with his own performance in games, and he like almost mentally psychs him out. So yeah, I mean, he's always positive maybe in the team atmosphere while the game's going on, but he really is hard on himself, and I think that's a big struggle, especially because Energy actually relies a lot on him. Like in Austin, they were just saying, all right, Peter, you get like the first 45 seconds of every round to make something happen. Go find a pick. Here's an op. Go find something. And if he doesn't get it, it's like, where do we go from here? So I'm hoping Gabi does.
Like old Navi, basically.
Yeah,
or like old Titan with Kenny.
Yeah. But like that's what's so weird about it is they don't need to be. They have like Silent and Justin have proven that, especially against tier 2 competition, they can be really, really strong players. So they don't need to rely on Peter, which is what I find so intriguing about how Gabi's running this team. So I'd like to see some change in that. I want to see one of those guys kind of come out and be a consistent star for them. So that'll be interesting to see how Energy plays, because I actually don't think they're as far off in the possibility of coming out in second place as we might think. Mm-hmm. I think against CLG and SK, I don't see any reason why they wouldn't be able to beat them in a best of 1. It's when the best of 3s come along that you'd be a little bit questionable. Well,
as the MV says in the chat, God be, don't forget. I already forgot. I already forgot about it again. Oh, talk about energy. God B that
God B. Fuck.
Couldn't get anything going with mouse sports and was eventually cut.
You know what we could talk about somewhere?
All right, it has to be quick though, because I'm already 15 minutes over. All right. So what's up?
Okay, let's do 5 minutes. Let's talk quickly about how dominant we were in the 3v3.
Yeah.
How
actually, there was a topic. Actually, I wish that we would have brought that up with. This sounds somewhat self-serving as well, but
really, I like self-serving.
WESA. It's the players, it's the orgs, it's the tournament organizers. Where's the commentators in this, man? Commentators. Where do the commentators get any say? We're part of the show.
Yeah, we're just chilling on the outskirts. We're just letting everyone else decide our career path, I guess. Yeah.
Exactly. I was joking about CLG, but we're actually the ones, like strapped onto the tower, and then it's Kennegat who comes over He's got like those like metal claws, you know, and he just like tickles you a little bit, right? And you're just like, yes, please give me more. That's what being a commentator is all about, I guess. There you go.
What is that Greek myth where they have the guy like tied so like the grapes are just like barely out of reach of his hand, and like the water is like the other way and just barely out of reach of his hand, so he can like see and like touch the food in the water, but he can't quite eat or drink anything.
Yeah. No, there's that. There's also we're Prometheus, right? That's what's up. We have we're strapped onto a boulder, and an eagle comes out. Every event basically comes out and pecks our liver out, and then by the next event it's regrown again. It like the liver's back, and then the eagle comes down. You know,
it does feel that way sometimes, doesn't it? You're like, just give me 3 days at home before I go get absolutely annihilated at another event, please. I just want 3 days.
But did we bring the light, Moses? That's the question, right? Did we bring the light? I don't feel like we brought the light just yet.
Not yet.
We got some work to do before we bring the light.
Yeah, I'm all about it. Let's buckle down. Let's get the light.
All right. On that note, we did crush Anders and Henry. Henry's never going to look at us the same.
Henry was like really disappointed at the after party. He was really having a bad time about that. It was nice though to see when I went up to give him like the post game hug and handshake and everything, like look into his eyes and just see how crushing it was to lose in front of his like hometown. He's talking up like being from London, hearing those Henry chants and everything like that, and then just stomping on it. That was beautiful.
I definitely enjoyed walking up there and giving him a nice big hug. Nice big hug. I was just like, there, Henry.
Daddy's
cry on
home.
My shoulder. All of your hopes and dreams of your comeback and winning in front of your home dashed on the floor.
Yep.
And I just walked right through them while I came over here to give you that hug. So, yeah, he'll never forgive us. It's going to be great. All right, guys. Yep. I say that is the end of the show for this week, at least. We'll see when we can actually come back with it. Maybe next week we could try and actually get something going. So, on that note, we bid you adieu, and we will see you guys as soon as we can. But thanks for watching. Be sure to follow the channel, and it will also be coming out on YouTube if you showed up late, want to catch the beginning of the VOD when we actually talk about WESA and, share our opinions there. Be sure to check out YouTube. There should be a link to it below if you scroll below. If you're on the Twitch page right now, there should be a link to our YouTube there. You'll be able to find all the VODs. And also, don't forget, be sure to follow on SoundCloud. When it comes out, we will also be releasing the podcast in audio format for SoundCloud. So all of you guys, I'm one of them who like to listen to SoundCloud on their phones, while they're walking around and getting shit done. You can also listen to the podcast on SoundCloud. So be sure to follow there, follow everywhere, and we'll see you guys soon. Take care, everybody. Love you all.